Many people think that women gained the right to vote in the 1920s because of the 19th Amendment that gave women the right to vote was ratified to the United States Constitution. However, this movement can be traced back to the 1790s. In that time, only land-owning white men could vote. At that time, women were expected to stay home to cook, clean, and tend to the family. Throughout history, women have always wanted the right to vote, but they had never really stood up and fought for the reform before World War I. After World War I, women got a taste of independence while their husbands were fighting in war. World War I provided the final push for women's suffrage in the United States. Before the war, women were housewives and only worked in the household. But while men were off at work, women took over their jobs in places like factories and shops. Women were now in charge of their own families. Women were also a big part of the war by being nurses. This showed America and all of the world what women really could do and how important they really were. World War I helped motivate the suffrage movement for them because women felt like they had a purpose and a place in society. Women got a taste of independence, which in turn drove women to want more say and rights. President Wilson said World War I was a war for democracy. So women got mad over this since they did not have equal rights. After World War I, women gained more respect and eventually fought for and three powerful and inspirational women rose to the challenge to reform the women's voting rights: Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and Lucy Stone. One of the first public appeals to reform women's suffrage came in 1848. Two reformers, Lucretia Mott and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, called for a women's rights convention in Seneca Falls, New York. The men and women at the convention adopted a Declaration of Sentiments that was based on the Declaration of Independence, but it was reformed to call for women to have equal rights in education, property, voting, and other matters. The Seneca Falls Convention was only the beginning of Stanton's accomplishments. She later went on to co-found National Women's Suffrage Association and became the president of the Women's State Temperance Society. Susan B. Anthony was also a big part of the reform by being an activist and public speaker throughout the campaign. In 1868, Anthony and Stanton started to use propaganda by writing a newspaper called The Revolution to voice their opinions on suffrage. Anthony traveled all over the United States to raise awareness about suffrage. Without these two women, this movement would have never been a success. Lucy Stone also wrote a weekly magazine called The Women's Journal to express her opinion on how important suffrage was. They organized many protests and parades throughout the United States, especially in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. Many suffragists concluded that public protest was the quickest route to universal franchise. Alice Paul and the National Woman's Party staged a political protest to picket the White House. The picketers held banners demanding the right to vote. This is an example of non-violent civil disobedience campaign. Paul was then arrested and incarcerated. Their time and effort soon pay off when more and more people then started to campaign. But soon, women's suffrage was brought up in Congress but quickly shot down. Woodrow Wilson was the president during this revolutionary movement. At first, he was against the reform, and he did not take it seriously because he didn't think it would progress. President Wilson would even arrest women for protesting. Then he started to change his mind, and his viewpoint on women. President Wilson eventually supported the Revolutionary Amendment. President Woodrow Wilson became a revolutionary president, and he was viewed as a hero by women. President Wilson has changed every woman's life by giving them the freedom to vote. Women's suffrage in the United States was achieved gradually at state and local levels during the 19th century and early 20th century, concluding in 1920 with the passage of the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution. The campaign led to women legally being able to vote in elections and run for office. After the generation of Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Lucy Stone, and Susan B. Anthony, the next generation of suffragists, including Lucy's daughter, Alice Stone, and other women like Alice Paul, together with the great guidance and inspiration of the generation before them, got women the right to vote. On August 26, 1920, Anthony's previously written amendment from 1878 was ratified to the Constitution and known as the 19th Amendment. The 19th Amendment gave all American women above the age 18 the right to vote. Several generations of women suffrage supporters lectured, wrote, marched, lobbied, and practiced civil disobedience to achieve what many Americans considered a revolutionary reform of the United States Constitution. Few early supporters lived to see final victory in 1920. Achieving this milestone required a lengthy and difficult struggle. Victory took decades of agitation and protest, but was finally achieved in 1920 by the 19th Amendment. Although women's suffrage was controversial at the time, it revolutionized and improved lives of women now and then by allowing them to have freedom and a say in our country's government. And while it seems that these women made such success effortlessly, there were also many forces against them, with many different positive and negative reactions. Many organizations like the National Organization Against Women's Suffrage Association were opposed to give women the right to vote. These organizations were led by Southern white men that were afraid black females would vote, ethnic politicians, and liquor forces that realized that most women would vote against alcohol. Some people who reacted negatively didn't feel that women should have the same rights as men, or that women were less intelligent and less able to make political decisions than men. Opponents argued that men could represent their wives better than the wives could represent themselves. Some negative reactions that women's participation in politics would lead to the end of family life. Women went to great measures to get suffrage. Some were even arrested. But women's suffrage reigned supreme. Women went through a lot of trouble to get this reform, but they always stayed strong. There are many positive reactions from this revolution. Women were ecstatic over the amendment. They had celebrations, parades, they started to speak out, run for office, and even get jobs outside of their home. Women reacted with excitement and more self-pride than ever before because of this revolutionary amendment. Because of the actions of the women of our past, women today live very different lives. And in this way, ladies like Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Lucy Stone, and Susan B. Anthony created a revolution. They not only got women the right to vote, they got the ball rolling for the women's equality movement. Women being able to vote brought a whole new point of view to voting and history. And women all together started taking bigger parts in society and the government. It opened the door for political careers, no more salary or employment barriers, and participation in sports, which led to Title IX. Many modern women have been embraced and influenced by the 19th Amendment, including Sarah Palin, Hillary Clinton, Oprah, and Ellen. Every woman, from Hillary Clinton to the everyday person, has the freedom and opportunity to have a say in today's government because of the women's suffrage revolution. Women all over the world have been influenced by this revolutionary movement. Women's suffrage in the United States influenced women in other countries to fight to reform women's suffrage and have more rights. Women in Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan, and the Middle East still do not have suffrage, but they continually fight for this reform.
Came to win, to fight, to conquer, to thrive. I came to win.